Welcome back to NES Revisited episode 11. We have 5 games to check out for the month of April and May, so let's just jump right to it. The first game we're going to check out for April 1987 from Konami is Track and Fields. There are a few different versions of this game depending on the console and what it was capable of. You get your 2 modes, A and B, being expert mode. The NES version has 8 different events to compete in. For the 100-meter dash, don't jump early and mash A through this one. Each event has a qualifying record to beat in order to advance. Now there's 2 ways to play this game, with or without turbo. I have a pretty unique skill where I can tense up my arm, which allows me to press buttons really fast. For the long jump, mash A and press and hold the D-pad before you cross the line. Let go when you're at a good angle. You'll get 3 tries to qualify in this one. For the 110-meter hurdles, just tap A and hit the D-pad to jump. The javelin throw is the same as the long jump. If you throw at the highest angle, you might just hit something out of the sky. Skeet shooting is as hard as it looks. The A button shoots at the right square and the D-pad uses the left square. The best way to get through this is to find your timing by listening to the launch. If they are coming from the right side, just use the A button. If you miss, you can attempt to follow up with the D-pad side. If you're lucky enough, you can qualify. You never know if they're coming from the left side or the right side, but when it sticks to one side, it's a little easier to deal with. The triple jump is a little awkward. As usual, mash A and then hit up before the line. You can control the angle, but the trick is to land 2 more times, with the last jump being almost in the sand. Pick a decent angle above 40 and you'll get a decent score. Archery is really challenging. Pressing the A button will stop the wind display and choose a wind speed and direction at random. Use the D-pad or the A button and hold it to change the angle. Try for about 5 degrees. You'll have to hit the moving target to score points. You get 8 arrows per try, so you're going to need to figure things out quickly. Also, if you let the target go past you, you'll lose that arrow as well. When playing on expert mode, archery and skeet shooting are definitely the hardest events in this game. You can choose whichever event to start first, and it just repeats all the events until you lose, each time with increased difficulty. This game is pretty fun, though if you're not into setting records or 2-player challenges, it does lose its replay value pretty quickly, especially using a turbo button. There's a ton of versions out there, and the NES does a decent job with this one. The only thing it's missing is the ability to play the same levels over again to beat previous records or practice. Our second Konami game, Russian Attack, is a side-scroller that plays similar to Trojan. There are 6 stages in total. Each stage has ladders you can climb and a variety of enemies. You get 4 lives, but it's 1 touch deaths, and when you do, you start back at a checkpoint. The enemies usually follow 3 varieties. We get the tag you're it guys. You could just stand there and stab them as they walk into you, or just jump over them and they'll keep running whatever direction they're going. Then there's the jump kick guys, where you'll have to either jump and stab or just keep walking and they'll jump over you. You'll get a variety of stationary shooting characters as well, so once you've trialed and errored your way through each stage, replaying the stage becomes a lot easier. You can pick up various weapons after killing certain enemies, so keep on the lookout. If you get a rocket launcher, the POW will let you know how many shots you have left. This game is really hard. The up button as a jump really makes it more challenging than it needed to be. If you jump and there's a ladder next to you, you'll climb and probably die from the guy you're attempting to jump over. I want to like this game, but the combat is like playing rock, paper, scissors, except jump, walk, or attack. Choose wrong and you're dead. Now, this game does have 2-player co-op, which helps make this game a lot easier. Also, there's a workaround where if you let the second player die off, you can now die and continue right away instead of restarting the stage. If this cheat doesn't bother you, then you'll enjoy this game. Otherwise, you're stuck memorizing everything if you really want to beat this game. As far as I know, there's no way to continue, so it's all or nothing. I think this game could have been a lot better. One-hit deaths and jumping over enemies really isn't my idea of fun. If you're into speedrunning, this game would be a good candidate for that. Russian Attack has great music, but falls flat with the gameplay variety. There's a few weapons you can get, but they disappear too quickly. You'll spend most of your time running, jumping over enemies, and stabbing the ones that caught up to you. The graphics are pretty good, but it's just strange that touching someone who's running past you is instant death. And of course, they could care less if you jump over them. In Trojan, enemies did a similar thing, but once they were near you, they started attacking. This game is like, get out of my way, I got places to be. Meanwhile, you're carrying a rocket launcher on your back. Alright, so for 1987, is this game worth picking up? There's no doubt that movies like Rambo have inspired this military-style genre, so I get the appeal. Make the A button the jump button, and make the ladders more useful than obstacles every 15 steps. This game isn't too bad to play. If I saw this game on the shelf in 1987, I'd probably just save my money because there's some must-buys coming in the next few months. Moving on to the month of May, Data East brings us their 1982 arcade classic, BurgerTime. BurgerTime for the NES is a fairly close port to the arcade version. The object of this game is to create the giant burgers by having Chef Peter Pepper walk completely across them. Each time you do this, it will drop one level, knocking anything else an additional level down. This could be other burger parts or enemies as well. You are equipped with a pepper shaker, so if hot dogs, eggs, and pickles get too close, you can toss pepper on them to stop them temporarily so you can walk by. The enemies in this game are fast and smart. You really have to pay attention or you'll end up getting ganged up on quickly. It kinda has that Wrecking Crew vibe to it. If you happen to drop a burger component with an enemy on top, it will drop twice, which can cause a really useful chain reaction. Pepper is your only defense, so once you run out, it doesn't come back, even if you finish the level. As an arcade port, expect the usual. Complete the stage to move on, and the next stage will be set up differently. There's 6 different stages total, and it repeats after that. This game is really hard, but it has its charm. It's a bit outdated, but I could see gamers buying this if they played it in the arcade and enjoyed it. The graphics aren't great and the music is poor, but that's how it was in the arcade, so I get it. It's a silly game, but fun game to kill some time if you're looking for that single screen arcade style. I wouldn't be rushing to buy this day one, especially in 1987. I think Data East should have tried for a 1986 release, especially since the competition is getting really stacked on the NES, with Capcom and Konami games. I can never fault a publisher that releases arcade ports to home consoles. I've just never been a fan of BurgerTime. Next up, we got CastleVania by Konami. You get 18 stages divided up into 6 different levels with different music and tons of enemy variety. You can carry a whip to start off with, which can be upgraded twice by hitting objects. The beginning of the game illustrates this point well and also gives you a special weapon to try. You would intuitively think that hearts fill your health, but they're actually for your secondary weapon. You can find these giant turkeys hidden in the walls that will increase your health. CastleVania is notoriously difficult. Even though you have a life bar, you're most likely gonna die from knockback when hitting enemies. The deaths are cheap in this game. When you die, you lose all your power-ups too. The steps can also be challenging as well. Once you start climbing, you're committed to the steps. You can't jump off them. Also, if you attempt to jump on them, you'll fall through, sometimes to your death. This is what turns most newcomers away from this game. Nothing wrong with dying from low energy against tough enemies, but nobody wants to jump on a moving platform only to have a bat knock you off. Once you jump, you cannot change your direction or height. It's always the same, so once you commit, you hope an enemy doesn't spawn in front of you. The only benefit of this type of jump is that you always know where you're gonna land, so that you can't do anything about it. Stage 10 is where things get ridiculous. Tons of platforming, enemies waiting to knock you down, moving platforms. It's a complete nightmare. The bosses aren't too difficult with the right weapon and energy levels, assuming you can get there. You can also find hidden power-ups to boost your special moves, making the bosses even easier. The developers did a good job putting stuff in areas where you'll need them. Similar to Ghosts and Goblins, CastleVania has unlimited continues, so you can eventually master each stage until you complete the game. Once you know what to do, the game becomes more fun because you'll remember where the cheap enemies are and adjust accordingly. CastleVania's graphics, amazing soundtrack, and dark atmosphere feels like a real Dracula game. It may have the most annoying type of deaths you could ever ask for in a game, but it makes up the difference with everything else. This is a classic for a reason. Worth a pickup in 1987 and worth it today. Finishing up the month of May, we have our first SNK title, Ikari Warriors. Originally an arcade game, this game was ported to a ton of early consoles like the Atari 2600 and Commodore 64. You'll notice many similarities to Commando with its run-and-gun vertical scrolling gameplay. The arcade machine used a rotary joystick, so you could move in one direction and aim in another. Unfortunately, the console games cannot replicate this, so you will just shoot and throw grenades in whichever direction you're facing. The controls aren't as smooth as Commando, but it's definitely a harder game. You don't turn around fast enough, which is not ideal with enemies that are surrounding you. You move really slowly and you have to deal with soldiers, tanks, and helicopters. The enemy grenades will often have a huge radius. Avoiding these is really impossible if they throw it on top of your head. The cool thing though is that you get to ride a tank and a helicopter later on, but unfortunately the tank can be a liability if you aren't used to the controls. You aim by holding A and then using the D-pad to rotate. Then you move around shooting only in that direction. I guess it's the only way they can mimic the arcade movements. Throughout the game you can collect power-up items and supplies. F is bullets, which make your bullets red and more powerful, and the tanks shoot rockets instead of cannonballs. L is for a longer shot. S will speed up firing. B will boost your grenade so it's more like the enemies. K kills everything on the screen, and you can even find a 3-shot spread. The rest increase ammo, that's assuming you don't die immediately like I did. You get 3 lives and a limited amount of bullets, so you're gonna need everything you see. There's only 4 stages, but they're the most ridiculously long levels you'll ever experience. There's no breaks either. So at this point, we've all become accustomed to extremely hard games, and this one is no exception. No continues makes this game virtually unbeatable unless you grind like crazy. Fortunately, the developers knew this would be a turnoff, so they added a couple of codes in the game that could help you out. The first one is the Infinite Lives code. After you lose your 3rd life, you won't show back for a few seconds. This is when you enter the code ABBA. Just keep repeating ABBA and eventually you'll come back to life. But this only works on the first 3 stages for player 1. Also, when using the tank, it will explode shortly after losing fuel and taking damage. If you hold A and then B, you can get out before that happens. So with the cheat codes, this game becomes much more manageable. Of course, it does make the game too easy. The music doesn't change. All the enemies look exactly the same except a few small occasions. I love the concept of driving tanks and helicopters, but this game falls short with repetitive enemies, extremely slow progression, and difficulty moving around to avoid rockets and enemies due to slow walk speed. Flickering isn't as bad as Commando, but I feel like Commando was more fun and had better controls. Sure, you can cheese your way through most of this game with unlimited lives, but that makes you care less about avoiding the enemies. I would have preferred infinite continues and midway checkpoints. 3 lives won't get you far at all. Ikari Warriors was ported to over 15 consoles, but none of them compared to the arcade. In my opinion, it's the only way this game should ever be experienced. Alright, well that was a pretty good mix of games. If you're enjoying this series so far, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you can stay in the loop. And as always, thanks for watching.